All right, well, we are going to go ahead, I think, and get started. So welcome to our webinar series. I'm April Jones, Jones Law Firm PC. This is our webinar series, COVID-19, your family, your finances, and your future. Today, we are talking about the stimulus package and how that affects your family, your finances, and your future. So for those of you who do not know already, I've been an attorney 29 years. I have Jones Law Firm PC for 20 years in Colorado. We are family law attorneys exclusively, and this really affects my clients and their finances. So we have today an expert, Eric Nesbitt. He's an attorney, he's a business attorney, he's a real estate attorney, he's a realtor. His company is Nesbitt Commercial Group, and he is here today to take your questions, to answer your questions. And let's go ahead and get started. Eric, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, April. What a pleasure and an honor to be with you all today. And as April said, my name's Eric Nesbitt, and I've been practicing law about the same time as April. I think we graduated law school the same year. She went to, you go to UC San Francisco, April?
I went to Hastings in San Francisco.
Right.
UC
I
Hastings,
went to UCLA, so we both graduated law school in 1991. And
wow, you look good, Eric.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
But I have, as April alluded to, excuse me, I have two different companies I run. The first is my law firm with the focus on both real estate and business law issues, and that's the law offices of Eric L. Nesbitt, and I've been operating that here in Colorado about 12 years now. And I also have a commercial real estate brokerage firm I operate called the Nesbitt Commercial Group. And we advise and counsel clients, small businesses and medium-sized businesses on identifying space to lease and investors who are looking to buy commercial real estate. We advise them on those issues. Today's topic is interesting and very timely, and I have come to gain some expertise in this area due to the fact that many of my clients on the law firm side are very interested in hearing about the stimulus packages that are available. And as
So yeah, why don't we start, rather than jumping into questions, which is what I normally do, why don't you go ahead and give an overview of the stimulus package, and then the questions can be targeted to that.
Excellent. Okay. So when we talk about the stimulus package and what's available, I think, well, first of all, there's good and bad news. The good news is I think that there's opportunities for everyone, individuals, small businesses, large businesses alike, to participate and receive some of the benefits of the programs I'm going to talk about. The bad news is that I don't know anyone who has received funding yet. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of baked into the cake when you think about a government program. I didn't think it would run smoothly and efficiently. The good news is I heard today that there's a thought that some of the money may start flowing as early as next week. So let's hope that's the case. We've heard it before. So
now, weren't the people supposed to receive their $10,000 within 3 days?
Yes, I'll talk about that. And my business applied for that, and I haven't even heard that my application has been accepted, or I don't know what the status is. So
okay, so we got a lot of questions on that. So just so you know, even our business attorney, our real estate attorney, has not received anything on that, even though the act says 10 days. So hold on, it's still coming. Is it still coming, Eric?
That's what they tell us. It's still
coming.
I hope it's still coming.
Okay.
We think it is. So when we talk about this relief package for the coronavirus and the big act that was passed last week or 2 weeks ago, the CARES Act, which was passed by Congress, it's a $2.2 trillion act aimed at helping individuals, small businesses survive during this time where effectively our economy is pretty much shut down. And when we talk about what kind of benefits come out of that, I think it's useful to talk about, maybe split it up in three different areas. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the stimulus check that many of you may be entitled or qualified to receive. So I'll give you some details on that and how you qualify for that. The good news about that program is you really don't have to do anything. just wait for the check to arrive, assuming you qualify for it.
Okay.
Then we'll talk a little bit about the emergency or the government stimulus, economic injury and disaster loan and grants that are available.
Okay.
And that's a tool that you can use to apply for funding or grants, and that's the $10,000 that April was alluding to earlier. And I'll give you some details on how to apply for that, if you're eligible for that, etc.
Now, Eric, is that what people refer to as EIDL, the EIDL program?
The acronym for that, it's Economic Injury Disaster Loan.
Okay.
That's what that one means.
Okay.
And
So
it sounds
people
really
have been
good.
asking about EIDL. That's EIDL. So EIDL with an E.
EIDL with an E, correct.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the Paycheck Protection Program. And that, you probably heard that by the acronym PPP. And I'll give you some details on that and how you can apply for that and if you qualify for it. But as I said, leading into this, the good thing is there appears to be monies for all of us, individuals all the way to small businesses. The bad thing is the money's not flowing yet. So we just got to keep our fingers crossed that the money begins to flow. So let's turn our attention to the stimulus check, stimulus relief check. And this is really the opportunity or a program where you don't have to do anything. Just wait for the check to come. And the qualifications to apply for that, or the qualifications to receive funding under that, is that you have to have income for your 2009 tax return if you have submitted that. As an individual, your
2019?
2019 or 18.
Oh, okay.
2019 or 18. So if you're, as an individual, if your adjusted gross income, your AGI, is at or below $75,000, you're entitled to a check in the amount of $1,200. If you are married and you file jointly and your income is below $150,000, you would qualify for $2,400 plus $500 for each child. So that's great. And Eric,
just for clarification, just gonna keep popping in where I've got these little questions.
Sure.
The $500 per child is child under what age?
Good question. Child under 17.
Oh, so not a 17-year-old?
Not a 17-year-old. The way it's statute's written, it's got to be, it states under the age of 17. So it will be 16 or younger.
So if I have 17-year-old triplets, I'm out of luck.
You're out of luck.
Okay.
You're out of luck. And $500 for each child under 17. And if you're under, if you have Social Security that you're getting, you still qualify for this. So I know that was a question on your website, April, if someone with Social Security would still be eligible for the benefit under this.
Okay, so if you're receiving SSI, the rule, it still applies to you, you're still qualified.
Still qualified, assuming your income levels meet the criteria I just provided.
Okay.
Which in most cases I assume it would.
Okay, that answers about 5 questions, so thank you.
All right, so even if you have income above these threshold levels, there's still a chance that you may receive a check. And the way that works is anything above $75,000 of income, the check that you would receive is reduced by $5 for each $100 increment you're over that $75,000 figure. Or in the case of a married couple filing jointly, the same thing applies. The check is reduced $5 for each $100 over that threshold.
Can you give a real world example, because a lot of people have questions about that, like if somebody makes 90,000 or 100,000, how does that math apply?
Now you want me to do math, huh? Okay, so let's 100,000 is probably a good example of it, or 99,000. So you have to bear with me. I'll have to do a little bit of math on the fly. So we said earlier that the threshold for a single person is 75,000.
Right.
And someone is making 99,000. You'll see why I'm using 99,000 here shortly. I'll give you the reason for it that makes sense. But 99,000 minus 75,000 is 24,000 divided by 100. So that's 240.
Now, why did you divide 24 by 100?
Because the rule tells us that it's reduced by, I'm sorry, I messed that up. It's reduced by $5 for each 100 above the threshold. So let's start again. My bad on that. Lawyers doing math. Okay. So 99,000.
So you know, if our real estate attorney is working on this, this is not easy for everyone. So that's why I wanted to go over this example so that you can apply it to your own situation and know what your number is. Okay, Eric, let's go. 99,000.
99,000 minus 75,000 is 24,000.
Okay.
And the rule says your check is reduced $5 for each $100 above the threshold. So we need to take 24,000 and divide it by 100.
Oh.
You with me?
Yes.
Okay, divided by 100 is 240. And then you multiply that by $5. So in that case, it amounts to $1,200, the amount of the check. And the reason that works out is 99,000 is the threshold. Anything above 99,000, you don't receive any money. You won't get a check at all. If we did this same example and we used 95,000, is it easier to do that?
So what was your end result? Your end result is the $1,200 is reduced by $1,200, so they get zero.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you want me to, I can do it. We can use another example and do 90,000 if that is better.
Well, you know, let's do something more real world. Let's say they make $80,000 instead of $75,000. So it sounds like you say, okay, I make $5,000 over, and for every $100 of that $5,000, you subtract $5.
Correct.
Is that right, Eric?
Correct.
Okay. And so
in that case, you would have 5,000, divide that by 100 is 50.
Okay.
And then you reduce it by $5 for each 100. So 50 times $5 is $250. So the check is reduced from $1,250 to $1,000.
From 1,200? Is it
1,200? I'm sorry, to $1,000.
Okay.
To $950.
Okay. So your $1,200 check is reduced $5 for every $100 that you were over 75,000 until you hit 99,000, and then it's zero on up from there. Is that right, Eric?
Right.
So basically the way you can think about it, because this will take care of probably another 10 questions, is if you make between 75 and 98,999, you will get some money.
Correct.
It's just how much, is it a penny or is it 1,000? Is it 500? You have to do the math, but at least you know that if you're in that range, 75 to 99, that's where there's possibility of funds. And
to add to that, if you are a household filing, if you and your spouse are filing jointly, the threshold then is 198,000. So you will get 2,400 if your joint income is 150 or less, and then anything between 150 and 198,000, you still will get a check. After you get over the 198,000, then you don't qualify anymore. If that's your
okay, so it's the same math. It's just if you're married, if you make 150, you get the full amount. If you make between 150 and 198, you need to do the math to see how it gets reduced.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yes.
All right. So there's one caveat with this. I did say that you don't have to do anything. The check will come. The only reason it shouldn't come is if you did not have to file taxes in 2009 for 19 or for 2018. If that's the case because your income was so low or there wasn't a reason or a need for you to file a tax return, then you should go to the IRS Gov site and submit information so the government knows where to send your check and knows they can be alerted to the fact that you did not file a tax return, but you're still eligible under the program.
So if you didn't file a tax return because say you were a student and you didn't make enough money for it to have to file, you can still get a $1,200 check?
Yes.
Oh, the full 1,200.
Yes, you just have to go, you have to go online and provide details about the income you made. Maybe I haven't looked at that particular website today. It just came out. The Treasury Department just announced it today, but you have to go on there and submit some information about what your income was during those years, and maybe they want W-2s, but the general answer to your question is yes, you still would be eligible to get the entire 1,200.
Okay.
So again, go ahead.
Just the things are changing. Eric is saying there's a site that just came up recently. So with whatever we're telling you, still go to the site, check it out, see what it says, see if anything's changed, and still apply or do what you need to do for your particular circumstances. Is that right, Eric?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. If you filed taxes in 2018 or you filed a return for 18 or 19, you're in good shape. Just check the mailbox. As Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said today, he thinks money will start flowing by next week. But again, we've heard that before. We hope it does.
So a problem that you won't have with your practice, well, you might with business clients, I don't know. Problem I'm having with my practice is they're mailing the check to wherever you got your refund check last year. And if you are divorced this year, or if you are not getting along and you're separated, you know, who gets to the joint account first and who gets the check. So if the checking account doesn't exist because, for example, you were divorced and you close the joint account, do you know what happens?
That's a good question. I think the initiative that the Treasury Department has indicated they will follow is to try to send by direct deposit. So if a taxpayer received a refund in previous years in their direct deposit account, their Wells Fargo account or Wachovia account, that's where they will send this check. So I use the example of checking your mailbox, but in many instances, given the technological advances we've made and how people get paid these days, it's probably going to hit as a direct deposit check. So to your question about what a husband and wife that are in the process of getting a divorce will do if they both still have a joint account, that's going to be a tough one. I can
take that question, but what if the joint account was closed because they are actually divorced or because they actually separated their funds?
I would go on the IRS Gov site, and the same site I was talking about, or the website where if you didn't file in 18 or 19, I would go on there and try to notify someone from IRS that that account no longer is open. I think I heard something about that on the news, people not being able to get to their direct deposit account. So I would try to alert the IRS of that, and hopefully they will send a paper check or send to a banking account that is in line with wherever the recipient wants it to go.
Okay, because I imagine they have to have a stopgap for that, because even people who don't divorce change banks, because no one was anticipating that we'd be having the stimulus program and they could have changed their bank. Okay. And if your situation is where you are divorcing and you have a joint account and you don't get along well enough to just say, hey, let's split that, give your lawyer a call, give me a call. We can talk about, or you can send a letter to them saying, hey, we need to protect these funds, something to that effect. I'm sure the court is going to be inundated with people who can't work it out. The best thing would be to just work it out, divide your check and carry on, and you could take it up at permanent orders, right? So that would be my real advice, is divide it for now, take it up at permanent orders. The courts are really backed up because so much has to be continued, because they're not hearing cases the normal way because of the pandemic. They're only letting emergency matters in the courthouse. So that's that. Let's not take up too much more time with that. I know Eric wants to get to the other loan and stimulus programs.
Right. So let's shift now to the second program that many of you may be able to apply for, and that's the EIDL, or the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan, or grant. And this is the one where in the middle of March, it was announced as part of the CARES package that any small business, and small business is defined as any business with 500 employees or less. That sounds like a large business to me, but that's the SBA guidelines. So small business 500 employees or less would be entitled to a $10,000 grant as long as they met the eligibility criteria, which I'll go over here briefly, or there would be other loans available up to $25,000 for other needs that the business might have. So some of the key issue here I want to hammer home is you don't have to be a limited liability company. You don't have to be a corporation. If you are a sole proprietorship or an individual running your own business and you have needs that are going to be tough to meet given the economic climate we're in, this is something you should apply for. And you have to show some form of hardship in the application. All of us are facing a level of hardship due to the economic slowdown that we're facing now, so that shouldn't be an issue. And one of the beauties of this program is the $10,000 grant is deemed forgivable if you can demonstrate that you used it for the purposes that you applied for. So that could be anything from payroll to rent and mortgage payments for your business, debt obligations that you have that you're not able to pay now because you don't have revenue. So everyone, if you have a business that you've been running, everyone should be applying for this program.
And keep in mind, this is important. A lot of people, because I'll meet people, I'll talk to people now, and say, have you applied? A lot of people think that they don't count because they're just an individual. But if you're a musician and you're gigging, it applies to you. It applies to people who have their own business. You don't have to have an LLC. You don't have to be a corporation. You don't have to have paid W-2s. You don't have to have done 1099s. You can just be a person operating a business. Is that right, Eric?
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct. And I'm hearing the same things, April. People are reluctant to apply and thinking they don't have a big corporation, so maybe they're not going to receive the benefit of it. You should apply nonetheless. The website that you go to complete the application, and I did this for my various firms 2 weeks ago, and it only took maybe 25 to 30 minutes for the application process. But that website is covid19relief.sba.gov. So again, covid19relief.sba.gov. Okay.
covid19relief.sba.gov.
Correct. So I did 3 applications for this particular grant. I've got my law firm, I've got my real estate company, and I've got a real estate holding company. So I spent some time when the application first came out in March, middle of March, doing this. I got a application number after I completed it, and I haven't heard from the SBA since. Okay. I don't know where to go to check on the status of it. When I try to check on the status of it, they want me to complete a new profile. I did that, but it doesn't show me, it doesn't allow me to input my application number. So I read a story in the New York Times this morning about a lot of businesses facing the same experience. They've applied for this, they got on it early, and no one's received money. No one knows what's going on. It's just a lot of bureaucracy. The SBA is behind, but don't let that defeat you. Go ahead and apply. I think the money will start flowing at some point.
Okay. So what I really want everyone to take away, and this probably knocks out quite a few more questions, no one's heard anything. If you applied and you got that number that they gave you initially, apparently that's all the contact that there is. And it's just a matter of waiting, and other people haven't been paid by the SBA while you haven't been. So just be patient, file, and just make sure you encourage people around you who qualify, who otherwise might say, I don't want to do it. Have them do it anyway. Okay.
You would hate to miss out on $10,000 of free money.
And a concern I've got in family law matters, if you lost your job and then you want to be able to say, I want to reduce my support because I lost my job, I'm concerned the court is going to come back to people and say, hey, did you take advantage of this free $10,000 or not? Right. And that's going to be a factor. So just be aware.
Right. And before I know I've made this point a couple of times, but you may have a regular 9-to-5 job and have a side business. Again, that would probably qualify under this program. So it doesn't hurt to spend 20, 25 minutes just applying. We're all at home anyway, so take some time and apply. Don't be left out of this once the money starts flowing.
Good.
Any other questions on that one, April, before I go to this paper?
I've been asking them as they go along, so as you've gone along, so let's
Okay,
keep going.
we'll
You got some more good stuff.
So the last one that I'll talk about, and then we can open it up for questions. And this one is the Paycheck Protection Program, and it's
My
going.
favorite.
That's your favorite, yeah.
Mhm.
Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, and this came out of the CARES Act as well, and it's really an incentive the government is offering for people or employers to keep their employees on staff and on payroll and not lay everyone off. And assuming they start making payments under it, it's probably a pretty strong incentive, I would think. The SBA will forgive loans as long as they're able to demonstrate that the people or employers kept their payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll. It can even be used for rent, mortgage, or utility. So a question, even when I was applying, I had some questions about that when I was applying, just thinking, well, I'm applying for payroll, but it says that I could use it for mortgage and other.
Associated with your business, though.
Associated with your business. But
Not
in the
your
application, it didn't ask questions about my business or about my mortgage or how much I was paying on that. So I think if you end up receiving the funds under this, you can use those funds not only for the payroll program, you can use it for some of these other expenses and costs.
But if you don't use them for the particular expenses that are authorized, you will not get it forgiven. So you've got to be careful. Even though the application is super short, it asks you your name, a couple other things, and to confirm that you haven't committed crimes and fraud, and that's about it. You need to be aware that in order to get forgiven, your payments, the money that you get has to be spent within 8 weeks of getting it, and it has to be on allowed expenditures. So make sure you understand at that time what the allowed expenditures are before you spend it. And I also heard advice that you should put the money in a separate bank account than your normal banking business, just as a tip, so that if you have to go back and track and trace how you spent it, you're not mingling it with your normal operating account. Just as
I think that's a great idea. I would do that. And what I saw on the SBA's website is they would consider, obviously payroll is an allowed expense, but rent, mortgage, and utilities, they specifically list those expenses under this program as being allowable. So I think April's point is a good one. Maybe segregate the funds into a separate account and then track the expenditures or track the withdrawals from that account if you have to account for how you use them.
And you will if you want to be forgiven.
Right.
If you want to pay it back as a loan, that's a different matter, but you don't want to do that.
You don't.
And 75% of it has to be spent on payroll, even if the other 25% is spent on those other business expenses of mortgage or lease and utilities.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one. So you may know more about this one than I do, April. I hadn't heard.
I told you it's my favorite.
Yeah.
So, that's, and you have to have your head count has to be the same at the end of that 8 weeks as what it is that you put into your application, because the whole point, part of the point anyway, is for you to keep your employees. So you're getting this money so that you can keep your employees, keep people in the employment, keep people employed throughout the country. So just be aware and be attentive to that, because you don't want to make a misstep and not get your money forgiven.
Unlike the two other programs I've spoken about, on this one, you need to have a relationship with a banker, or you apply through the bank, FDIC institution that has a relationship with the SBA. And this will be a benefit to many of you that have banked at a certain institution for a while, and hopefully you have a preferred status and you can press upon the banker to push your application. But they will facilitate the application. There was 2 days ago, I read that Wells Fargo was stopping the program because they had run out of money, or just they got too many applications. Now they have reopened it up. So
good.
if you do bank at Wells Fargo, you should continue to apply and talk to your bank or whoever you work with at that bank. But there
Okay.
are many
My
banks.
son, my musician, banked with Wells Fargo, and he was saying they stopped the program. I don't think it was that they ran out of funds. They were just inundated. And so that was going to be my question: is what about people? So he banked with Wells Fargo and Bank of America, and they both were saying similar, oh, we can't help you anymore. But it's nice to hear that they've opened it back up, because so many people work with them. You would just be cutting out such a large part of the country, and that seems like they can't. I know there were lawsuits filed about that as well.
Yeah, what I read was that the number of applications they received and the amount of loans requested exceeded what their allocation was, Wells Fargo that is.
Okay.
And then they just the Treasury Department just gave them another allocation of funds, which allowed them to open up again.
Okay. So run, don't walk. Wells Fargo. Do you know if Bank of America was affected?
I haven't heard about Bank of America. Personally, I'm using a firm called Fortis, which is a bank that caters to law firms and so on. But there are a lot of banks in the Denver area and around the country that are SBA partners, and they all will be part of the program. And if you go to sba.gov and you look at this particular PPP program, it will give you a list of the financial institutions that are part of the program and that you can apply with. And then I would work directly with that institution.
Okay.
And again, this PPP program is not just for big corporations or LLCs or limited liability partnerships. It's for solo proprietors. It's for individuals. So as long as you can establish that you're running a business and have these payroll expenses, you should be fine with it and apply.
And if it's just your business and it's just your payroll, same thing. You just establish your net payroll. So if it's just you, you have to use your bank statements to establish it. If it's somebody like a company, like Eric and I, we're going to have to use our W-2s. Now, one of the questions we have is, if you pay people with 1099s, does that count? And the answer to that is no. 1099 payments will not count, because it says in the act that if you get a 1099, you can apply yourself. So the person who received the 1099 can apply, but I can't count as payroll people that I paid in a 1099 fashion, just people I paid W-2. And the other thing you can't count is if you paid a temp agency, because the temp agency can go and apply on their own as well as a business. So it's got a lot of components to it, but it's a lot of money. And the limit is $10 million, 500 employees and $10 million. I had a client tell me that he didn't want to apply because he didn't want a handout. And I'm like, well, the people making $10 million with 500 employees, they're applying. So rich people are applying. Don't let your pride get in the way. This is money that belongs to all of us, and you should partake in this if you can. Eric, do you agree?
Absolutely. And on top of that, it's a way to serve as a catalyst to get the economy back up and running.
Yep.
They're giving this money out because they want to stimulate the economy. If you've been paying taxes over the last few years, you've been paying into this fund, and it's only right, given that there's an act that is beyond all of our control, you're entitled to receive some of that money to keep your business afloat, to help bring the economy back. So by all means, don't feel like it's a handout, because believe me, as April said, those big businesses are applying and probably did it 2 or 3 weeks ago, the first day it came out. I heard of people in firms waiting until 11:59 on that day that the applications came out for the PPP program, waiting to apply.
Wow.
So it's money that we're all entitled to. Go after it if you can qualify.
And so barbers and restaurant owners and personal fitness trainers and people whose companies have been shut down, apply for everything that you can apply for. And I have a question here. They said you talked about $25,000 for the EIDL program. Can you talk more about whatever had a $25,000 limit?
All right. So On that EIDL program, there's three subsets of the EIDL program. There's the grant, that's the $10,000 we talked about. Then there's a $25,000 loan where you have to go in. That one is not written up as one that they will be as easy to forgive. But if you can demonstrate some of the factors, how you're using the money, they may consider doing that.
Now, how do you qualify for the $25,000 one?
You go on the COVID-19 relief.sba.gov and you apply for that specific program. And then there are loan programs. There's another loan program. I didn't touch on this, but it's the typical or the economic injury disaster loan that was in place even before COVID came about. So you can apply for that as well, but you've got to go through more of an underwriting process with that one. And that one you can seek, I think, funds up to $200,000 without a SBA partner financial institution participating as a guarantor on.
And
so,
is that different from how you would normally be able to get such a loan from the SBA, or did they change some of the criteria? Or
nope, it's the program they've had in place, and it was used during Hurricane Katrina and other catastrophes. So that and this is deemed a catastrophe as well, obviously. So you can apply for that one if you think you need funds beyond the $25,000 limit.
Okay, and are both of these loans, number 2 and 3, do you have 30 years to pay it back?
I don't know the answer to that one, April. I don't think I was so focused on the fact that it's forgiven, at least the grant and some components of the $25,000 loan. I'm not sure what the pay period or what the term would be on the payback of the larger loan. So
take a look when you're at the site. I do believe it's 30 years and like 3.75%. It's something that when you read it, you're like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
If it's something that you want to do. So take advantage of what you can to get through these times. Don't let pride get in the way. If the government shut down your business, and you need to take advantage of this stimulus program to get the country, including you, back on track. I have a question for you, Eric. I have a wedding planning side gig, and of course, a lot of my weddings are canceled. I tried to apply on the SBA site, and it's asking for an EIN.
EIN is a fancy way of saying it's a social security number for a business. So it's your tax ID number. And most small businesses have that EIN number that they've applied for. If you don't have an EIN number, use your social security number.
Because if you're a sole proprietor and you didn't have an EIN, it's your social security number.
Correct.
When you file your taxes, right?
Yep, it's the employer identification number. So it's either your social or your tax ID number if you have set that up and obtained a tax ID number.
Well, we are close to out of time, and I have been asking questions that people have been giving me as we've gone along. I've been interrupting you pretty good.
Wow.
So I think we're going to need to call it now. Thank you so much, Eric. This is an evolving issue, an evolving area. Stay tuned, pay attention to the site, pay attention to the news. If you have questions and you need to talk to someone, you can talk to Eric. Eric, what is your number and contact or email? What's the best way to contact you? Best way
to contact me is probably by email. My email address is Eric, ERIC, at Nesbitt Law Offices, NESBITT, Law Offices, LAWOFFICES.com. Our office number is 303-741-2354. And we remain open during these times. My assistant, Shannon, is available to set up consultations and would be more than happy to assist anyone that has questions about these programs. And I know there's a lot on the news about what's going on. I hope we were able to simplify it and give you kind of 3 different pockets that are available for you to apply if you qualify. And if you've had additional questions that we couldn't answer, it's a long act. I think it's 331 pages. So give Eric a call.
he can look up your specific question and give you a specific answer. So thank you everyone. Obviously, if you have family law questions, if you have some problems, we're always here. DenverDivorceAttorneys.com, DenverDivorceAttorneys.com with an S at the end of attorneys. So thank you everyone. Be well, be safe. We have webinars continuing next week. Monday, we're going to talk about domestic violence, what you need to know for yourself, for your neighbor, for your friend. So just keeping your community safe and learning the questions you should ask or the things you could say or how you can help someone if it's not you, if it's someone you know, okay? Because we know a lot of people, and sometimes, you know, friends are silent or neighbors are silent. So we're going to give you some tips, because there's the belief that during this time, DV is really skyrocketing. So let's be aware and helpful. Next, we have our really fun one that I like a lot. It's going to be Take Control Tuesday. Last week we had football legends. This week we have Dick Munford, the CEO and owner of the Rockies, and he is going to be talking to us about mindset and how to keep a good mindset and control what you can't control and manage what else you can't, because obviously there's no Rockies right now, and we're going to talk to Dick, take your questions, get some insight from him for how you manage to survive and be successful and get the score. So that's what we're having this week. Next week, after the following week, we have a paralegal tell-all. So my paralegal is going to talk to you and answer your questions. Do I need a notary? How do you get notarized? I was served. What do I do? Where's the courthouse? Is the courthouse open? Is the courthouse closed? So lots of your questions. So look for the webinars in the future. Thank you so much for attending today, and be well and be safe. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, April.